action.
Yeah, Guy. Yeah, freaking Guy. It is the last day of 2016. You're listening to Down the Line Surf Podcast. News, notes, parking lot fodder from the surf world with an emphasis on lighthearted banter. It's surfing, not Syria. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for the introduction. Did you actually write that down, or is that
no, that's
off the cuff?
Off the cuff.
Impressive.
Yes.
Dude, you must have had your morning coffee or something.
Tea. I've switched to tea.
I saw that, actually.
I've become a tea snob.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Is it because of the caffeine, or why'd you switch?
Mostly because my wife said, hey, let's think about drinking tea, and because tea's got caffeine in it.
Sure.
So it's more about you can drink tea throughout the day without getting the coffee up and down, like the big high and the big low, you know?
Yeah.
I learned a lot about Starbucks. Apparently Starbucks sprays their coffee beans with extra caffeine, and it's in the ingredients, but it's like a number. It's like this FTC, FDA number.
You never want to see a number in your ingredient list.
No, and so anyway, point is that tea's got antioxidants. Tea's actually good for you. Mm-hmm. And there's different levels of tea that have different levels of caffeine. So like an Earl Grey black English morning tea has got about 90% of what a cup of coffee has. And it kind of seeps out through your system a little slower. And then you can go to like an oolong tea, which has got about 60% of the caffeine. And then later in the day, you can go to a green tea or a white tea, which has got about 20% of the caffeine. And then you can end your day with an herbal tea, which has no caffeine. So you can drink tea throughout the day and get benefits. So there's a lot of health benefits in tea.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interesting history about, the world economy revolved around tea and still does in some places. So anyway, I do still drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning because I love coffee. Yeah. But it's not an all day affair like it could be on certain days. And so now,
we're on the same program, dude.
Because
really? I've never had more than 1 cup a day of coffee, but I'm a big tea drinker as well. I have all sorts of different devices for brewing, and I'm into it.
Do you have a steeper?
I did. Well, yeah. I have a steeper. I have loose leaf contraptions.
Yeah, I have a loose leaf contraption.
Yeah.
And when I pour the hot water into the loose leaf contraption, then I can put the contraption on top of my mug, and it drains down and presses the leaf.
The Tivana one, right?
Yes,
I have the same exact one.
The Tivana, I guess, was purchased by Starbucks.
Yes, that's right.
And Starbucks buried Tivana, more or less. I think you can still get stuff online, but there's a place in San Diego called the Tea Gallery, and he's the wholesaler of most of the teas in San Diego, and maybe even in Southern California. And he's an English guy. He's got an interesting history. He worked for Aston Martin forever, but his family was in the tea industry, and eventually he came back to the tea industry, and he's quite informative.
Good, I'm glad to see that, dude. I really enjoy it, and we have some more to talk about now other than just surfing and making fun of each other's hair. Hey, I'm going to propose something to you.
Yes.
It's
the last day of 2016.
Tomorrow is, actually.
Really? I thought it was today.
Today's the 30th.
Oh, okay.
Tomorrow's New Year's Eve.
I have the 30th. I thought the 30th was the last day. I get an extra day of life.
How many years have you been doing this? Living?
Fairly enough so that I'm starting to forget.
So check it out. I'm going to propose something. This is a first-time proposal. Scott, want to surf together on January 1st.
I asked for you to surf with me yesterday. It would have been such a good day. And you're like, no, I got to work.
Yeah, exactly. I have to work. That's a legitimate excuse. You're asking me to surf on a random Thursday, midday.
I'm with you. Okay, so to get back to your thing, go ahead.
Check it out. My aunt and uncle recently moved to Del Mar.
Oh, cool.
And I'm spending New Year's Eve with them.
Okay.
I'll be around New Year's morning.
Sunday? Is that Sunday? Yeah.
New Year's morning will be Sunday morning. Yeah. So I'll text you Sunday morning. If you want to shred, let's do it.
Yeah, we should definitely shred. It's going to be chilly as all hell.
Okay. I got my new Need wetsuit and my booties.
Okay, you're good. So anyway, Sunday could be good. It's probably going to be good. It could be a little bit dirty water, but that never stops me if the waves are good.
And it'll be crowded because it's Sunday and New Year's Day.
Right.
So, but I'm down.
Okay, good.
I'm bringing my stuff. So.
Good. We'll surf for sure. It'll be fun. In fact,
kick off 2017.
We should maybe suggest to readers that. Do we want to tell them where we may surf? Or should
no.
Hell no.
No, I don't want it more crowded.
Wow, self-centered fear just occupying your headspace.
All the time. That's where I live.
Speaking of which, this is a great segue, self-centered fear.
Right.
I've got something I'm going to read. I'd like you to hold commentary until afterwards.
So, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Or do you want to do an email?
No, please.
I cut off Hipstergram icon. Hipstergram icon is a person.
Okay.
We're going to make him anonymous. I'm going to call him Hipstergram Icon.
Is Graham his middle name?
No. I cut off Hipstergram Icon. It was a perfect wave on a perfect day. Santa Ana winds groomed a legitimate 6-foot November groundswell. Nary a drop out of water, yada, yada, yada. I had just ridden a perfect wave, David, and paddled myself outside, but not quite as deep as Hipstergram Icon. The perfect wave came, long, tapering, and setting up on the outside reef. I put my head down and started digging deep into the 12 to 15 mile per hour offshore winds. I wanted the wave more so out of carnal lust, like an addict's demand for another spoonful, than a sense of retaliation. But upon realizing Hipstergram Icon was in the perfect spot, I rationalized my action as retaliation. Retaliation was my way out. The madness that was playing out in my head, ego and judgment, both resting solidly on self-centered fear, masking cleverly as entitlement. What happened was wrong. I was wrong. Yes, I cut off Hipstergram Icon. I dropped in on Hipstergram Icon after Hipstergram Icon had previously dropped in on me. Deep down in my heart, when reflecting on my action, it wasn't right. 2 wrongs, yada, yada, yada. Herein lies the dilemma. I've done this too many times, David. I want to grow up. I want to stop dropping in on people. My life on land is different. I look upon my fellow man, you, David, with empathy, love, kindness. I try to live with a sense of humility. If a driver cuts me off on the road, I don't retaliate. I simply imagine they have a great reason for hurrying. Probably delivering a baby, I'll say to myself. On land, my outlook is tolerance. Of course, I often fall short, probably more often than not, but I'm eagerly trying, sanding the rough edges off a self-centered pathos. It isn't easy. But once I reach the beach parking lot and the decision to paddle out has been made, some sort of super ego is triggered. A collision of who I am with who I really am. All of the personal progress thrown out with the dog poop. Mix in the completely incongruent, wishy-washy, misunderstood set of surfing social norms and forget about it. Mental chaos. My monkeys are scurrying on the hamster wheel at top speed. Rules. There are attempts. We've all seen the carved wooden signs telling us how, when, and where to surf with etiquette. Etiquette is a golf term. Surfing has no etiquette. Closest to the peak or surfer who's been waiting? No one really knows. Regardless, rules, norms, ideals, they sound good on wood, but not in the water. Isn't that part of surfing's allure, the Wild West, no rules? Although we have paid parking in Starbucks. Our culture holds on to this 1950s era beatnik, motorcycle, outlaw, fringes of society image. But then expects everyone to know and follow rules that are carved into a wooden sign. I prefer chaos. It'd be okay. I'd be okay with rules, David, if we all followed them. Our problem is that every surfer has his or her own set of individualistic set of rules. Merica, individualism. As an example, Hipstergram Icon cut me off, and I cut off Hipstergram Icon. The wave I cut off Hipstergram Icon on, David, was a much bigger, cleaner, and better wave than the one in which he cut me off. So according to his set of rules, he has a right to be more pissed off. His wave was better. Big wave, small wave. Am I not allowed to retaliate? Retaliation is behavior that was taught to me by my elders and peers, despite all of the wooden signs. Some of you might be suggesting, yeah, you know what? You have the right to retaliate, and some would disagree. Who is right? Nothing is clear and concrete in surfing. Even my retaliation excuse is skewed with and filled with gray matter. It was justification for wave lust. Oh, by the way, Hipstergram Icon had been waiting 10 minutes for that wave. I had been waiting 39 years. See, I'm a sicko.
Wow.
So we bark, scream, and make hand gesticulations at each other like silly mimes in an aquatic Woody Allen film. Did I mention Hipstergram Icon and I are middle-aged men? Inner-city basketball courts have an understood system of social norms. Who picks the teams? Whose voice is recognized as the leader? There's a hierarchy based on meritocracy. If you're a legitimate baller, you have clout on the court. If during a game, player A strips the ball from player B and drives the length of the court and slams it home, player A is rewarded with 2 points and probably some oohing and awing from the witnesses. Player B looks to retaliate when and if the time is right. Player B certainly wants justice, and he may or may not get his chance to adjudicate. Nevertheless, it's part of the game, and all the players understand it and have agreed to it. The boundaries of fair play are clear. No boundaries in surfing, no perimeter lines where a general set of worldwide rules are clear, understood, and second nature. No one really knows what the other person is thinking in the water. Here's what I do know. My actions in that moment do not represent my value system, who I am or who I am striving to become. And what good are values if they aren't put into action? They're no good at all, just words. And the spirit of the universe honors action. That's my soliloquy.
That was intense, dude.
Have I bored the living hell out of us?
No,
Perhaps.
I'm inspired, actually. But there's so much to discuss. I had bullet points in my head that I lost track of throughout it all.
You're busy
It
with
went on a lot longer than I expected.
I know, it might have been too long.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't too long at all, actually, and I fully agree. But did that actually happen?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure it happens all the time, actually. It's not just one incident. Not just with you, with all of us.
Thanks a lot, man.
No, seriously.
No, it's true. You know, I'm trying to...
But...
There's a dilemma between my life on land and my life in the water.
But I'm not. I guess where I differ is, I'm not sure I want to abandon the animalistic superego that you're talking about. Like, I'm totally okay with having those two separate lives, and I do think it serves a purpose in the lineup. But I do think there's also a meritocracy in the lineup that is similar to the basketball analogy that you talked about. Like, it's not that it only exists on the basketball court and it doesn't exist out there. It's less defined in the surf lineup, but we all know it exists.
Well, I don't know if it's an it. It's almost like a they. For instance, I brought up in my piece, does the guy on the inside have the right of way? Always, 100% of the time, no matter what.
No.
Exactly. Right? No. Because there's weird moments. There's moments. If that was the case, then everyone could just backpedal everybody and go, hey, I'm on the inside.
Right.
What about the old guy that's been waiting 15 minutes that's been surfing there for a super long time?
Yeah.
Not necessarily me, but whoever it is.
Or somebody who's sitting out farther in the lineup. They might be a little bit more on the shoulder, but they anticipate that wave came right to them. They're just swinging around into it. And then there's a guy sitting underneath them who's technically closer to the peak who spins at the last second.
And screams. Therein lies the gray area. Therein lies the fact that there are no real norm sets. And there's no set of rules that we all absolutely agree. Like the basketball court does have a very defined set of rules, which more or less 99.9% of the time they're understood.
And
if they're not, a whistle blows and you get a foul.
You're right, though. There's a lot of gray area.
Tons of gray area.
Yeah. There's a lot of nuance, and you and I understand the nuance, but there is gray area. I interpret it a little bit differently than you do.
And a lot of the gray area is simply a lack of communication. Totally. Like, there can be gray area, and we continue to sort of manifest the gray area and prolong the gray area by not even communicating after a potential foul has taken place because nobody wants to be that guy.
So did you get into an altercation with that guy?
With Hipstergram Icon? Yeah.
What words were exchanged?
Oh, just, you cut me off first, blah, 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 payback's a bitch, blah, 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 just, I don't even remember. It was just minor Southern California barking without any bite to back it up. But
you did dig in your heels and argue. It's not.
Well, no, he came out to me first, and because I was like, hey, you burn me, I'm going to burn you back.
Totally.
And
so he came out, said something, but you did say, you told him what's up?
Well, here's the thing. He and I are friends.
Oh,
like we're acquaintances. I wouldn't say we're friends, but we're deeper than acquaintances. We're like acquaintances that can often have deep conversation on the beach, but we don't necessarily go out to lunch or anything like that.
Sure.
But I've known him forever.
And he was indignant though that.
Well, he's a little bit younger than me, and there's a certain level of, I don't know, but yeah, he was mad. He was definitely mad. And is still mad. And oh, by the way, I found out the other day, which I think sort of led me to write this, because I found out the other day that he has video of this wave, and he's like holding it back. So I thought I'd get out in front of it by producing.
I love it. I want to see the video.
And he's a Hipstergram icon, so it could very well come out on Hipstergram.
That is so funny. Is that his actual handle on Instagram?
No. I'm going to protect his anonymity out of respect for him, because I do respect him and I don't want to drag him into this.
You must have burned him on a good one, dude.
It was a very good wave. And again, I didn't burn him out of retaliation initially. Like, I used that as a backup. I was just
You're gonna go
carnally lusting after another perfect wave.
Yeah.
You know, and
but you
frankly,
knew he had
because
burned
it was, I knew he had burned me.
So
as soon as he was like kind of had paddled into the spot, and it was one of those things where I was a little bit further out, but he was on the inside, but he'd been waiting. I just paddled out after a good. I should not have gone.
Yeah.
I was in the wrong. And in fact, I called him after the session because I was upset about it. And I said, hey, you're right. I was in the wrong. I shouldn't behave like that. That's not, I basically said what I just wrote here.
Sure.
And he got back to me and said, I understand, blah, blah, blah. Like we kind of like hugged it out more or less through text.
But you know what? It's I can already feel what you're talking about, where it's like, I'm going to feel bad and I'm going to apologize later, but it's worth it. I'm going to go on this wave because it's coming right to me. And
I kicked out too. So I took off, did a bottom turn, and knew he was on my heels, and I got out of the wave, and he rode the rest of the wave. But it was more that I didn't even yield to him, because he was obviously in the right spot at the right time. Like he couldn't have been better positioned, and I couldn't have been more on the shoulder.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Well, the other thing is being in your position in that scenario, sometimes you can get them just to back out. Well,
here's
you're
another
showing intent. You get up, go, and you just figure he'll kick out.
Well, that was definitely going through my mind. And this was that day that it was super strong offshore. So guys that didn't have the right equipment, now he did, but guys were paddling for waves and not getting it, because if it just backs off a half a second and that offshore wind holds them up, they don't get into it.
Yeah.
And I was on a board that was getting me into everything.
So you're just going to...
So I'm digging, and I'm thinking maybe he won't get it.
Yeah.
And if he gets it, I'll kick out. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
There wasn't as much malice in my action as perhaps I made out to be, which is, I think, why I was sort of upset about it. Because I was like, dude, I just dropped in and kicked out. I wasn't sure if you were going to catch it.
Yeah.
That didn't fly with him.
Right.
And probably I think one of his things was, hey, give me some credit, dude. I know how to surf. I'm going to catch the wave. Yeah. Which is kind of true.
Yeah. So last Thursday afternoon, I was driving home from work. It was like Thursday. A couple days before Christmas. It was so good, dude. Like, the waves had been small for that 2 or 3 weeks straight, and then the swell filled in on Thursday. On my way home from work, I got the phone call. It's like, dude, it's head high, peaky, and offshore. So had a blast, but I was in a similar scenario where this guy I've never seen out in the lineup before, paddling for the best wave of the day, and I'm sitting into shore closer, but it's coming to me, and I could spin and go on this thing like right behind him, basically, almost like a back paddle. And so I didn't know who he was. I didn't know if he could surf, but he was paddling with intention to get it. He ultimately didn't get it, but I didn't realize that until I was just like a split second too late to actually go, and the best wave of the day just went unridden. And I came up from kind of a partial duck dive and just like looking at him like, what are you like?
Did he say something?
He didn't say anything, and I didn't actually say anything verbally. I just looked at him like with wide eyes, like, what the hell are you doing, dude?
Right.
Like, don't paddle with intent if you're just going to puss out. Like, which I think might have been kind of what happened, because it was a little bit bigger, and I don't know.
Isn't it Murphy's Law? If you would have spun and gone, he would have caught the wave.
Totally.
I swear that happens all the time. If you don't go for it, they don't catch it. But as soon as you go for it, all of a sudden they get an extra like degree of excitement or oomph, to get paddling into it.
I was late and deep, but I knew I could have made it. So like I kind of turned and I was just going to let it push me in like with like one paddle. But as I started to do that, I could see the nose of his board over my left shoulder, like he had caught the wave. So at the very last second, I just switch into a duck dive and get out of there. And then I come up and he's right next to me, and I was just like, oh my God, what are you, like, I tried everything to like stay out of your way and make the right decision, and then you don't even go. I was indignant, but
it's all kind of fascinating, right? Because a lot of it's based in fear that we're not going to catch enough waves, that we're not going to get ours. Like why were you bummed? Were you thinking, I mean, I know you were bummed because a great wave
best wave of the day went unridden.
Right. And so you were assuming that another great wave better than that one wasn't going to come through.
It never did. I assumed
right, but you didn't know that. It was not.
You're right.
It was contempt prior to investigation, more or less.
I got the next one in the set, but it was like not nearly as good.
And that was the best wave of the day at your spot.
It was.
Sure.
Well, so
you're positive.
It was because my buddy was paddling out and he was tripping. He was like, what was that? But yes, I did have a good time. You're right. Nothing lost. Right. It was all gain. But I what I was saying kind of initially right after your essay was like, I like that a animal instinct still exists in us, and I like feeding that animal, and like it's okay. There's something really raw and gratifying about that.
Well, I do too, especially on the basketball court.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm okay with it, except there's all these wishy-washy norms, you know, like we've got Hipstergram groovy guy who's like got long flowing hair and drives a VW bus, but is all of a sudden super aggressive like he's playing in the NBA. Yeah. Or is he the groovy guy that, hey, what happened to the groovy thing, you know? And like, it's just all it's just so gray and it's getting more muddled because there's so many, you know, beginners, lack of a better phrase, kooks in the water that it's just, who knows? Like, I'm fine with sport, going out and playing sport and being aggressive because that's what the norms of the sport suggest. Basketball, baseball, football, whatever, cricket, you know, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Soccer, right? You play aggressively and everyone agrees that that's how you play. And there's a certain line that you can go to. And if you cross the line, you get a yellow card. Mm-hmm. But in surfing, you know, you want to feed that animalistic side of it, but are you doing so at the expense of somebody, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's just frustrating. And then there's these wooden signs that are like, paddle around the peak. I've always said, don't paddle on the shoulder, paddle through the whitewater. Yeah. There's the sign at Rincon that's like, paddle around onto the shoulder. Well, that's where I'm going to be surfing. So I don't want you there. I want you to take your lumps through the whitewater.
And to your point exactly, this is exactly what you're saying. You can't define it on a sign.
No.
Sometimes you paddle the shoulder, sometimes you paddle the whitewash. Like, it's always different.
Exactly.
Every single wave is different.
Yeah.
So this is a great conversation to be having on the end of 2016, looking at 2017. I've spent this last week in retrospection, actually deciding kind of how I want my life to be different, how I'm not living the way that I want to be living in this year. And so I want to make adjustments moving forward.
Cool. I'm glad that you're in introspection?
Yeah, both.
That's cool.
Both. Yeah, I am. Definitely. I enjoy this time of year for that reason. Scott, I'm going to completely detour right now.
Good.
Huge segue. And just hand you this $100.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Look at this.
Let
me take a picture of this.
5 Jacksons.
We've got 5 Jacksons right here. This is fascinating. I've won a bet. Why don't you tell the listeners while I take this picture what happened?
The listeners already know because I got a lot of shame on social.
That is awesome.
So what happened was this bet was in reference to the Pipe Masters.
Yeah.
I bet that Kelly Slater would lose by round 5, and Scott bet that he would make it beyond round 5. And guess what? Slater made the semifinals. David lost $100.
Woo!
But in my calculations, we're even because last year I took $100 off you for Bruce Irons losing in round 2.
That's true. I can't believe I bet on Bruce Irons. What a mistake that was.
In hindsight, that was just idiotic. And I feel like an idiot right now handing that money to you. So,
no. It's all. You know what? This type of thing goes back and forth. I'm sure I'll be handing you $100 next year at this time when I bet on Kanoa Igarashi to win.
Well, so here's what irks me the most. I lost $100 to you.
Yes.
Even though my team beat you at Pipeline, and I finished 5th overall in the clubhouse. 5th. You know where you finished, Scott? 205th. And I still lost the $100. I'm ripping my hair out.
It does make it that much sweeter.
Yeah, it was brutal, dude. Brutal.
Oh, my.
So anyways, our fantasy clubhouse is on, it's actually fantasysurfer.com. And there's 420 or something people in it. It was won by a guy who goes by Joe Turpel.
Oh, really?
It's not actual Joe Turpel because I made that. I thought that it was for a period, and then he emailed me and said that no, he's not. But Joe Turpel won the entire season, so we need to give a shout out to that dude. He actually emailed me and said that, like it might be interesting for he and I to have a conversation on the air just to discuss fantasy. So I'm going to take him up on that, and we'll do that in preparation for next season.
Cool.
But yeah, great fantasy season overall. I'm really thrilled with my 5th place finish, actually.
I'm thrilled in the $100 you gave me in my 205th place finish.
I am so not thrilled with that.
So psyched.
So anyway, do you want to segue that into the Pipe Masters? Did you watch it?
I did. I watched it all, of course. Yeah, I watched it. I sent you a text. I said, "Hey, check it out. Kelly's in the quarterfinals."
I didn't reply.
You kind of caught on, I think.
I didn't reply at all.
I thought you did reply.
Did I?
I think you sent me like a thumbs up or a thumbs down or something like that.
Might have been the other middle finger emoji that they just introduced.
Oh, did they introduce one of those?
Yeah, update your phone, dude.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so, this Pipe Masters event, it's funny talking about it now because it feels like it was a week or two ago. It was a week or two ago, but we haven't discussed it on the show yet. Anyway, it was representative of the season at large in that it was lackluster, like a really unexpected final. Kanoa Igarashi versus Michelle Perez. Michelle won the thing. The waves were kind of lackluster. It was super fun looking. It made it look like, by the way, I could get shacked at backdoor. It was like 6 foot and fun looking. It wasn't life threatening at all. There's a really unexpected cast of characters that made it through the event. Kelly lost to Kanoa Igarashi. That was a shocker. John lost to Michelle Perez. That was a shocker. Gabriel Medina, a 2-time finalist, lost. I forget who he lost to, but it was just like really, really unexpected turn of events. Nevertheless, I enjoyed it. There was some really competitive heats, and like I said, the waves, while not life-threatening, actually looked fun and relatable. So
yeah, I was sort of blown away. I guess I've always known that Kanoa has competitive savvy. Like, he knows how to surf a heat. Can he go out against the big dogs and then apply that knowledge and that savvy to a heat? Like, it's one thing if, okay, you're in round 2 at Bell's against, Miguel Pupo and somebody, and you're applying competitive understanding.
Yeah.
But to do it at Pipe in the quarters and in the semis against big dogs and not be intimidated, because a lot of times I imagine those guys can just stare you down, and no matter how much competitive know-how you have, perhaps you're not going to be at the top of your game based on intimidation. And I thought Kanoa really rose to the occasion, and it said a lot to me about this guy. When you look at rookies in that sophomore slump the following year, he seems like a guy that I would go, you know what? I don't think he's going to have a sophomore slump. I think he's a guy that I didn't give enough credit to based on what I saw at Pipeline.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And to your point, he was surfing against his idol, Kelly Slater, at Pipeline in the semifinal in his rookie year. So he's got a final berth on the line. He needed an 8.6 or something. He waited for that set for like 10 minutes, let waves go.
Which is that savvy.
That's exactly right. And then with a minute left or something, a wave came to him. He spun, went. It was the best wave of the heat, and he got an 8.8. He needed an 8.6, and he surfed it to perfection, or to the best that it could have been surfed. It's like that showed real brass tacks or brass whatever,
balls.
Yeah, exactly. So I felt the exact same way that you felt, and I've actually been, before Kanoa got on tour, I was saying, like, you know what? He'll put together 2.8s in every heat. Like, that's who Kanoa is, and that's what he does, and he's done it on the junior scene, so maybe we'll see it in the pro scene, but that is who he is and what he does. Now, I think that's the next coming of surfers. This new crop of surfers, Leonardo Fioravanti, for example, like, and Kanoa fits right in that. I think that is what we're going to see moving forward, where we've seen ridiculous talents like Felipe Toledo, John Florence, Gabriel Medina, and we've seen competitive, savvy guys.
Nat Young, Ace Buchan.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the next coming where it's like Kanoa actually has flair and like some excitement to his surfing. It's not purely robotic, but he also has this tactical, strategic thing really, really dialed.
And I think physically he's going to kind of grow into some strength and stuff too.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if, what the plans are with him, but obviously he was 18 or 19. So, I mean, by the time you're 22, you're going to put on some natural adult muscle, which will be a good thing, I think,
agree.
Especially if it's in his trunk.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we've seen with Kolohe and Dino.
I'm glad you brought up Kolohe and Dino.
Are you?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I will segue into something about Kolohe.
Please.
Well, first of all, there's 3 guys that I look at that are right now. They're the best surfers to not be world champions, right? And Jordy Smith leads that bunch. Jordy Smith needs to be a world champion, or in my eyes, he will have not lived up to his billing and his potential. He showed a lot. And I think Jordy's kind of scary next year. I think Jordy could be a guy.
He finished second this year.
Right.
Yeah.
And he finished strong, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other two guys, who do you think the other two guys are that are...
I'm going to guess Kolohe and Dino.
Don't you agree that Kolohe's one of them? I mean, he's been on tour for like 5 or 6 years now. It's like if you're going to win a world title and you're the great American hope, which I think he is, although there's Kanoa.
Yeah, no, it's arguable.
And then the other one is...
Not sure.
Julian Wilson.
Oh,
Julian Wilson, been on tour,
yeah.
5. He's just like Kolohe. Like they're both kind of 4 years below Jordy. It's like, dude, now's your time to shine. You can't say, I'm just trying to figure out the tour. You've been on tour. You've been around the world. This is your 5th or 6th or 7th year on tour. You're an incredible surfer. You've got everything it takes. All 3 of them have everything it takes except for one thing. And that's the mental capacity to be the number 1 surfer in the world. Like what is that special thing,
It's, if we knew,
Well, I did a little breakdown of Kolohe's deal here. So, interesting. Kolohe did really well at the first event of the year and the last event of the year. Quicksilver Pro and the Pipeline Masters. What happens between those events is, in my mind, as much mental as it is physical. And so I think that the prescription for him is could it be meditation? Could it be like positive reinforcement? There's all sorts of...
Oolong tea.
Yes, oolong could definitely help out. Like stop the Starbucks, go to the oolong. Kolohe and Dino had 6 quarterfinals or better, right? Those are what I consider keeper results.
Yeah.
There's 11 events. 6 of them he was in the quarters or better. Of those 6, he won his round 1 heat in 4 of them. So he just skipped round 2 and went straight to round 3. And so that's a big... something that he needs to look at is how do I avoid round 2? Of his 5 throwaway results, round 5 or worse, what I consider throwaway results, 3 of those were round 2 losses. So 3 of those 5 he lost in round 2. And he lost just barely by 1/10 or 2/10 of a point in those losses. So round 2 is sort of his nemesis. If he can get out of those 3 events from round 1 straight into round 3 where he's proven that he goes on. After he gets through round 3, there's only 1 event where he just lost in round 3. So round 2 is his nemesis, and I think I think part of it is a psychological thing.
Yeah, I agree, but I think it also might have to do with the waves. Like,
there's definitely
big backside barreling reef breaks.
Chopu, he got the quarterfinals. He lost to Ace Buchan by 2 points at Chopu. Okay. Tavarua, he lost in round 2.
Yeah.
By 1/4 of a point to Josh Kerr.
I mean, when I think of him as a surfer, I think of his strength as being, right-hand point breaks, lower.
Well, Bells, he lost by 1/10 of a point in round 2. So here's the deal. Quicksilver Pro, he made the finals. Bells, he lost by 1/10 of a point in round 2. Margaret River, he made the quarterfinals. Guess what? He skipped round 2. The Rio Pro, he lost by 1/10 of a point in round 2 to Matt Banning. Tavarua lost by 1/4 of a point in round 2 to Josh Kerr. Jay Bay, he made it to round 3, but he got smoked by Jordy Smith, which you could say is sort of an outlier. Chopu, quarterfinals, did well. Trestles, he lost in round 5 to Slater. France semifinals, Portugal semifinals, Pipeline semifinals, all of them he made it through round 1.
Well, there's such a high level of surfers in the top kind of tier, those guys that you mentioned, and then throw in Gabriel Medina, John Florence, Kelly Slater, Felipe Toledo, that are all contending for world titles now. That I feel like Julian Wilson, it's hard to imagine him losing an event when you watch him surf, but there's just too many. Yeah.
These 3 guys have got just the mental barrier is all that needs to be broken for these guys, for one of them to shine. I think Kolohe can get it done.
Yeah.
And I think...
So Kolohe's your pick out of those 3?
Well, actually, Jordy, I wouldn't be surprised by any of them. I think they all have the mental capacity. The strongest mentally, I think, might be Julian.
I think, I would agree with that.
But Jordy, I just feel like, I've always poo-pooed Jordy. Like he was given way too much, way too early. And you could say that about all 3 of them, perhaps. But I feel like now Jordy's kind of going, okay, I'm settled. I've been married for a couple of years. He's probably got kids on the way. Like, it's kind of like he's looking to Joel and Kelly and Mick and going, if I'm in that group, I have to win a world title. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're Taj Burrow.
Interestingly, Kolohe just got engaged on Christmas, and Julian's getting married this year. So I've mentioned this on the show in the past. I think that there is some sort of correlation between your love life and your marriage versus winning world titles. I don't know that you could do both things very successfully.
You need stability, don't you?
Well,
and focus.
I think stability is helpful, but you also need a lack of distraction. You know,
right.
And I feel like Kelly Slater, he just abandoned a lot of those pursuits so that he could focus on winning world titles, and he did that very successfully for a long time.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you know,
stability, focus.
Yeah, but I think stability could be misconstrued. Like a wife provides stability for you.
Exactly. I'm down. I'm fine with. That's why I say like once you've been married for 2 years, like you're stable.
Got it.
You know, it's not like, oh shit, she likes to go to Costco on Wednesdays. Who knew? You know.
But the problem is that when these guys are hitting their peak potential as athletes and competitors is also when they're trying to get married and have kids. So those things are in conflict. Where it's like if you could just either put off getting married and having kids for a few years or do it.
Well, Mick and Joel got married, had kids. Things stabilized more or less. I know Mick was a little rocky maybe, but they won titles with kids being married because they were settled down.
You're right. Joel did it after settled down and when his family was traveling with him on tour. Like that was another thing. So you're not worried about them at home thinking, oh, I got to rush out of this event and get back to the wife because she's bugging me. Like she was with him and the kids were with him, you know? So that makes it a lot easier, but you really can't afford to do that unless you're on that top tier of athlete. These three guys that you mentioned, I think Jordy has the most ability out of any of them. I think he has the most instability mentally because you're right, too much too soon, but also he's just such a freakish talent that like he's never had to rely on mental stability. But I do think that freakish talent is on a level that's beyond Julian and Kolohe. Like when Jordy's on his game, it's like nothing we've ever seen. And I think it has to do with him being 6'2" and 190 pounds or 200 pounds.
I agree.
So like he unlocks a dimension of surfing that we've never really seen before. Like we've had power surfers before, but his flair and ability to like throw the tail and do airs is right up there with Felipe Toledo.
Yeah.
Except he's 30 pounds heavier than Felipe.
At least, yeah.
So he can do it on crazier waves. When you see the free surf footage coming out of Hawaii of him, it's mind-boggling. One turn at Rockies, you're just like, what in the world? So if he can harness that, he really is the next level.
I guess when we look at those three, the three greatest competitive surfers to not win a world title, we have to say which of them has the Adriano de Souza factor. Which one of them can buckle down and mentally go, I'm doing whatever it takes. Which one's strongest mentally? And I don't think I know any of them well enough to really say with any sort of authority. But my gut feeling is that it's either Julian or Kolohe, and the Jordy's got the least amount of that.
But he makes up for it in that raw talent.
Yeah, but
I agree with you.
I'm talking about who's going to grind through blown out second round Rio, you know?
Well, I think you're right that Julian is the answer because we've seen him do it in small spurts. Like we saw him do it last year at Pipe Masters. Not last year. Maybe it was the year before against Gabriel Medina when he won the Pipe Masters. You know, like he's able to focus that energy for a period of time, but being able to do it through the entire season is going to be what's required to get the world title.
How many Brazilians does it take to make a Brazilian storm?
8.
Then what we really have is a Brazilian fog.
Yeah. It's got downgraded.
The top 20, there's only 5 Brazilians in the top 20.
Yeah.
There's 6 Americans.
Yeah.
7 Australians.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the Brazilian storm?
It got downgraded, dude. Miggy's falling off. Like Miggy got on the rookie. Miggy became a rookie on tour with guys who have now won world titles. You know what I mean? So he's definitely not. Alejo got bumped off. Like a lot of that storm got bumped off. By the way, the 3 guys that you were just talking about, Kolohe, Jordy, and Julian, are all included on the rich list this year. The top 10 richest pro surfers, our highest paid pro surfers. Stab does what's called the Stab Rich List.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
No. Sounds interesting. Yes.
Can you guess who the top 10 is?
Yeah, number 1's John.
Absolutely. I think the top 5 are predictable.
Are they all competitive surfers, or is it just pro surfers? Like, are there some free surfers on the list?
They're all competitive.
Okay.
The top 5 is predictable. The bottom 5 is really where it's more interesting. So I'll ramble off the top 5, and then we'll discuss the bottom 5. First of all, Kelly is not included on the list because his financials are a little bit harder to determine.
So he's number 1.
he probably is. For all
I'm
intents
saying
and
he's got to
purposes.
be number 1.
And if he's not in terms of what he earned in 2016,
His
he probably
assets.
is in terms
It's
of
probably
assets.
his assets.
Net worth.
Yeah.
You know. So, anyways, this is their yearly salary that we're basing these.
This
numbers
is
on.
all just salary, endorsements and salary? Or?
Endorsements and contest winnings.
Okay.
So earnings for 2016.
Okay.
John Florence, 6.1 mil. Gabriel Medina, 5.5 mil. Jordy Smith, 3 mil. Mick Fanning, believe it or not, is number 4 on the list with 2.8 million. So Mick Fanning's interesting because he actually didn't surf on the tour. He surfed a couple of events.
So he gets a big salary from Rip Curl.
He's the highest paid athlete from Rip Curl, even higher than Gabriel Medina.
Yeah.
But he's a 3-time world champ. You know,
Well, he's Australian. Rip Curl's Australian. I mean, Rip Curl's Claw. Claw's going to make sure that an Australian's first, no matter what.
But rightfully so, because, by the way, 3 world titles.
Exactly.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
No, he deserves it. I'm not doubting that at all.
And the whole shark attack thing last year, that added a lot of focus to him. So he garners a lot of attention. Kolohe Andino is number 5 on the list with 2.6 million. Julian Wilson, number 6, 2.3 million. The final 4.
Okay, let me guess 10. The final 4.
Yeah.
Is Michelle Perez in there?
No.
I guess Felipe Toledo.
You're absolutely right. Number 6, 7. Felipe Toledo.
Josh Kerr?
No. Josh is no longer on Rusty, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I just thought I saw them make a bunch of guns for him on Instagram.
They did. He's no longer sponsored by them. I think he's still getting boards from them, but the sponsor contract is done.
Oh.
So they're not paying him anymore.
Parco?
Nope.
Wilkinson?
Nope.
These are competitive surfers?
The bottom 3. Stephanie Gilmore.
Oh, girls. Women? I didn't.
What? I didn't define whether this was men or women.
I thought we were talking about.
I just said the top surfers.
Okay,
the highest paid surfers.
Good for her.
Stephanie Gilmore is making $1.4 million.
Lady Diana of surfing. I love her.
Carissa Moore, $1.12 million.
I heard Steph Gilmore does not fart, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect her
She's
to.
not. She doesn't fart. She's biologically perfect.
I agree. The number 10 ranked.
Yes.
Highest paid surfer, you'll never guess it. Jack Freestone.
That is an abomination.
$1 million.
Billabong.
$1
They must
million.
be his number 1 guy.
Well,
no, Parka's their number 1.
No, but going into this season, he was pinned as the number 1 guy. He's like, this is the new coming of Parka. He's going to be our guy to vie for a world title. Little did they know, he barely requalified.
Little do they know, he's Jack Freestone. They're like, we're going to get Alana bunched into. We're going to get we're going to get a bunch of Rip Curl fade off of this. You know. So
Jack really didn't deliver on his potential as a competitive surfer, but he made the final against
he did.
John in Brazil.
Yep.
So he had moments of brilliance, and he's a brilliant free surfer. Whether or not he fulfills his potential as a competitive surfer,
everybody's
is
a brilliant
yet to be
free
seen.
surfer.
But that was Billabong's big bet when they renegotiated going into the year.
Brilliant Free Surfer is the name of my new band.
You're not going to live up to your potential in that.
We do covers of. We do Karen Carpenter covers.
Covers of our favorite surf film soundtracks.
I've got some highlights of 2016. Are you interested?
I am. They're
competitive highlights.
Okay. I'm not sure if I am. Give me the first couple, and then I'll determine whether I'm interested.
Well, one of the competitive highlights has to be Gabe Medina's aerial he did in Brazil. Was that Brazil where he did that crazy ass?
Good question. I don't remember where.
That got lost. That got kind of lost in the shuffle.
You're talking about the backside one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it got a lot of play.
Even we're overloaded with stimulation nowadays.
Plus the stuff that the kid from Maui that is doing.
Maui Layer.
Yeah.
The backside double.
Yeah. But competitively, that's pretty insane, right? John won the Eddie this year, didn't he?
Yep.
That's a pretty big highlight competitively.
Huge highlight.
Wilco's back-to-back shockers and That's kind of a competitive highlight.
The funny thing is we're calling him a shocker, but he won the event, and that's the shocker.
Right.
Usually a shocker is somebody like has a horrible heat.
No.
For him, the shocker is doing good.
He won. He won. What's even more of a shocker is he won bells. The next,
I know.
That's the ultimate shocker. Like he must have been hungover. And then Mick Fanning coming to J-Bay off the tour after the shark incident and winning J-Bay. That's a pretty big highlight, I think,
Huge
competitively,
highlight.
right?
Huge highlight. Yeah.
I don't know if Kelly's win. Oh, and your chop hop hairdo. That's one of my highlights.
I know you just Instagrammed me holding up those bills. Did you hashtag the chop hop?
No, I should have.
Don't do it now. Do it later. I need your full attention to listen to me. A couple of highlights of 2016 at Pipeline during lay days of the event. Kelly Slater and his backdoor barrel to alley-oop, and then John's alley-oop that same day at Off the Wall. Holy crap, dude.
It's amazing how those guys know that everyone's watching, and in a weird way, they sort of are setting the tone for the judges. Even in their free surfs, they're like, dude, this is what's doable out here. So make sure you keep the scale where it needs to be, because John and I are going to go Richter.
Well, everybody was out there on that day. It was stormy conditions. Guys were just getting like 20 duck dives to the head, barely getting into waves, barely just like sneaking off onto the shoulder, trying to get a little cover up on the shoulder. John and Kelly go out there and freaking dominate. Yeah. So it really shows you, aside from the competitive arena and who can get 2.8s in a heat, it shows you who the best surfers in the world are. Going out there into crazy conditions and doing stuff like that. I mean, John's wave, it was a gnarly overhead, off the wall, close out. Like the section that he did it on was gnarly.
Isn't that the alley-oop of the year, or the alley-oop of the century or something?
For sure.
The gnarliest, the highest ever?
For sure it is.
Yeah.
No question about it. And it's captured from multiple angles. When you think about...
He almost seemed surprised when he landed it.
Well,
there's like a little moment.
So buttery too. And what I was thinking is, when you're that high in the air, imagine how much of the wave changes from when you took off. So like you and I, if we do a floater, like we can see what's happening and anticipate it, because it's all within a second or two that it changes.
I don't do floaters.
Okay, well, that's the equivalent of John doing an alley-oop for me is a floater. Like,
I prefer the term rock and roll.
Yeah, but it's like, so when John took off into the air, the wave changed so much underneath him. You can't anticipate the landing when you're taking off. You have to get up there, look down, and see what's happening, and then make an adjustment. Like, that's crazy, I
know. He almost goes blind faith. He just throws it up there, and whatever happens on the landing.
I have a feeling he's making those adjustments in the air, though. That's what's...
How much time does he have to think up there? That would just ruin me. I'd be like, I'd be off to Foodland figuring out what I'm going to buy from the Haagen-Dazs aisle.
Well, that's what makes that air unique to me, is that he had so much time to make those adjustments, and he had to, So that really blew my mind. And I thought Peter King did a great job of capturing it, and he got the before and after interviews with John, and he recorded all the duck dives, because part of that story was John could have paddled out down the beach in a safe zone to get out to Off the Wall, but instead he paddled straight out and duck dove 15 waves. And the other guys were getting blown in, and he just kept charging through and then spun and got that wave after 15 duck dives.
Well, I mean, it was much like that for that whole waiting period, right? It was just this north swell and, only backdoor and crappy winds. And so they just made the best with what they could do.
Yeah. Well, Christmas Day went off the charts at Pipeline.
It did. Before we go there, I want to read an email, if I may.
Yep.
David and Scott, love the podcast. I just made my first-time donation. I really enjoy listening to your commentary and honest opinions. A while back, both of you were speculating on how President-elect Donald Trump might impact the surf community. One of the many negative possibilities I am dreading is the potential of opening up the California coastline to new offshore drilling. I would hate to see the coastline dotted with offshore oil rigs, bring the possibility of oil leaks and spills, effectively killing the ocean environment and the ocean industry. Not to mention, the last thing I want to be staring at while I'm enjoying the waves is an oil rig. Governor Jerry Brown is asking President Obama to put a permanent ban on new offshore drilling in California. And I would encourage all Californians to write their governor, legislative representatives and president to say that you support the governor's request. Below is an article referencing Governor Brown's request, and he sent a link to a PBS story about this. And so I'll put that, and I'm sure you'll put that on your site so you can find that link. But great, and that's by Reg, our listener Reg, and a great insight. You know, I never really thought about that. I could see Trump doing something crazy like that, and I could see, by the way, if California is ever going to secede from the union, that would be when it would happen. Like California would go nutso. Yeah, we would lose our shit. Yep. So I anticipate Trump doing that soon, just because it seems like it's right in his playbook.
Well, he's done plenty of similar things in the past. So.
You voted for Trump. I know you did.
No. So Christmas Day pipe.
Yes.
So
it's my must-see moment.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool. So, I mean, it was 10 to 12 feet, perfect conditions. And Mason Ho and Jamie O'Brien got the 2 waves of the day.
Right.
No big surprise there.
Right.
Mason's is bigger and more perfect. Jamie's, he takes off right under the ledge and it's deeper. I thought more impressive the way that he surfed it. Mason rides such
they're just different.
Board. They are,
They're just different. See, I like Mason's, and I'm not, I mean, Jamie's is just incredible, Jamie. But the thing that I like about Mason's, and it's sort of me reminiscing a little bit or getting a little bit teary-eyed about it, is that Mason's looked like his dad, Michael Ho. Like he was channeling Michael Ho from Second Reef with the longer board, the drop in at second, setting the line, and then going way behind the back door to drive through the left-hand barrel. Yeah. And it's not the butt drag stall, super critical, turn in the barrel, adjust your rail line in the barrel type of thing that Jamie or a lot of guys do nowadays. But it's certainly harkened back to Mike Ho, which I thought was kind of neat. And maybe I'm just showing my age.
No, I agree with you. Like seeing a perfect wave being ridden perfectly is fantastic, whereas Jamie's, on the other hand, there's an element of surprise. And he rode it perfectly, but it isn't. Yeah, I agree. Both things are amazing. By the way, Michael Ho got a super sick one too. Lost put it on their Instagram. They have like a few different Instagrams, Lost Surfboards, Lost Clothing or whatever. One of those has it. Maybe they all do. But it was a closeout, and he just packed the thing. Like he got up and like pumped down the line, and then the thing, you could tell it was going to close out, and he stood tall. No hand grab, just like stood super tall and just packed the closeout. It was pretty sick. Gnarly. Yeah.
That's heavy. That guy is, who was I talking to? Maybe it was you. We were talking about the greatest old surfer. Yeah, and it's Mike Ho.
Yeah, greatest shortboard surfer.
The Surfline Cam Rewind at Pipeline that day. Yeah. They have it on YouTube. If you go to the Surfline YouTube page, you can see and they've condensed it to just great rides. So it's like maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes long or maybe longer, but you're not seeing just a bunch of, downtime. Right. And so, congrats to the Surfline Cam. That's one of my must-see moments, Surfline Cam Rewind of Christmas Day at Pipeline.
I didn't see that. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
This is not a must-see moment, but from that same day, a friend sent me this YouTube link of Kelly Slater surfing Aukai, and it was Christmas Day, and I don't know why he wasn't out at Pipe. Maybe he was earlier.
There's footage of him. Yeah, he was out. But
this YouTube clip is him surfing Aukai, and it has 70,000 views somehow, which is a lot. But what I loved about this clip is it's pretty much just raw footage. Like there's cuts in it. It runs 3 minutes long, but there's no music. It's not the highlights. It shows him paddling for waves and not catching them. It shows like
that's what's gotten our attention these days. We're funny. So like. Yeah, there's so much good stuff that we're like, hey, we'd like to see him not catch waves.
It's funny. It showed, it was like really rad. It was an insight into just like, oh, he's a regular surfer. Not a regular surfer, but he misses waves too. And like he does what you did the other day where he actually stands up on a wave, sees that somebody's deeper and then kicks out of it. And it's like, oh, that was rad to see. I mean, that guy would have been thrilled to surf the wave with Kelly, so Kelly could have gone on it if he wanted to. Right. But it was just a really rad, I'm going to post the video on surfsplendorpodcast.com. It was just a really rad insight into just a average session for Kelly Slater.
Where did you see that?
He bogs a couple rails. It's on YouTube. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
So I just really enjoyed that in some weird way, like you said, where it wasn't the highlights. It was not only not the A clips, it was like B- or C clips. Like, I don't think Kelly is psyched that video exists of him online, but I loved it. You know, it was kind of one of the more enjoyable things that I watched.
Well, I have another must-see moment. There's sort of been not a lot, but the waves have been so bad here the last month, has it been?
The last week's been decent, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess the last week has been okay.
But yeah, the month prior.
Anyway, there's been a lot of scouring YouTube for stuff, but there's a pretty cool Nazare. Is it Nazare? Mm-hmm. Nazare Challenge, the WSL's Big Wave World Tour, the Nazare Challenge. Did we even talk about this event?
No, we're supposed to, right?
But anyway, there's a video clip out there on Vimeo. It's on boardroomshow.com right now. I put it up yesterday of a lot of the beatdowns, a lot of the successful rides too. But I mean, just it really shows you how unruly that place is. It's just mean.
So the Big Wave World Tour ran their first event at Nazare
the inaugural
a week ago or so, and it was massive. And it's a paddling event, and it's a beach break, so it's really chaotic out there. Jamie Mitchell won the event,
right?
Not to bury the lead, with really spectacular surfing. Like, he took off on some insane waves, made some insane drops. So I'm going to read just a short bit that Jed Smith wrote on Stab. About the event. He said,
Chaz or Jed? Who's
Jed Smith?
Who's Jed Smith?
Jed Smith. He has a competing podcast to ours, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jed, sorry, bro. Didn't know.
He's a writer, surf writer.
I listen to the Jeffersonian Hour. I don't listen to surf podcasts.
So, quote, while not the heaviest wave in the world in terms of rideability, what Nazare lacks in that department, it makes up for with sheer chaos in the lineup. While reef breaks offer a natural channel in which to escape, Nazare is a beach break subject to the full randomness and raw energy of the tremendous storm swells required to run in events like this. The contest, which was won by Jamie Mitchell, made for compulsive viewing with huge sketchy drops, potentially fatal near misses, and utter carnage on all fronts. Former World Tour surfer and big wave barrel specialist Damien Hobgood was nearly killed after a jet ski landed on him while attempting to make it out from shore for the start of his semifinals. His driver and fellow big wave surfer Garrett McNamara was forced to abandon ship at the crest of a 10-foot teepee, with Damo still on the back of it. The Floridian barely had time to react before he was thrown off and hit with what he believes to be the 700-pound weight of the jet ski.
Gnarly.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
There's footage of it.
That's like a major story.
Yeah, he totally ends up, he's going up the face of the wave.
I think I saw this on this video.
Yeah. The thing like launches off the
Yeah,
back of the
I
wave.
saw this.
He's falling off of it, and the thing lands on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is on that video.
And the start of his semifinal heat. It was
great way to start your heat.
So, yeah, I mean, this event, that Jed piece kind of sets the tone for the scene, but it's just this crazy beach break with 60-foot peaks that are pretty close to shore and pretty close to that cliff. It's lefts and rights. The jet skis can't really rescue I mean, they are rescuing some people, but there's situations that people get into that are unrescuable, you know? So it adds a lot more chaos and fear than like the Jaws event, which is a perfect wave, you know? So really interesting, spectacular event. Freezing cold water too. So, I mean, guys are in 4.3s with booties and hoods. So it's really, crazy. Really spectacular event to watch. My must-see moment, though, Scott, is a brand new series that Stab Magazine just introduced called Culture Shifters. And they did episode 1 on a guy named Scott Tratner, who is Facebook's creative director, which is a pretty high power position.
Yeah.
And he's a surfer. And so
everybody's a surfer.
It's a 5-minute profile piece.
Just a wave storm away from being a surfer.
It's a 5-minute profile piece on this guy and how surfing has been a part of his life as he's gone through these pretty important careers.
Good for him.
He was involved in Apple and the creative campaign, the marketing campaign to launch the iPhone, you know? Wow. So like really, he's been an important dude at these hugely influential companies. And so based on his success with Apple, Facebook gave him the creative director position, and he's been involved with them for the last couple of years. So it was really cool. I'm just interested in successful people and how they do what they do.
Yeah.
And trying to kind of improve my productivity and efficiency in my life and my work. And, and I think,
Oolong tea.
That does help. Surfing plays an important role in his world and my world. And so it's interesting to kind of just hear from him for a little bit. So I really appreciate Stab finding him.
How old is this gentleman?
Not that old. I'm going to say early 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah,
well, good
that was
for
a
him.
cool piece. I also have a Duke before we sign off.
All right. I see Beach Grit here wrote a thing on the Bunker Spreckles movie.
Matt Warshaw wrote
Matt
it.
Warshaw was... Yeah, did you see that?
I saw it. I didn't read it yet.
He basically kind of said what we said, or what I said, which is, I hope they go beyond, isn't he cool with money, guns, and drugs? Like, that's just so cliche. And they basically said, Warshaw's words are, a train wreck's still a train wreck.
Which is entertaining viewing.
Unless, only if you haven't seen a lot of train wrecks.
I wonder, did he see it? Because they premiered it on the North Shore a week ago.
Here's the Hollywood Reporter wrote. Here's the film review from the Hollywood Reporter, which I'm not even sure I understand this, but he says, Hollywood Reporter reviewer says, Masuda, the guy who made the film, Masuda seldom penetrates Spreckles' dazzling levels of artifice and reinvention in a way that yields much psychological or sociological insight. Instead, retreating into repetitive waves of, oh, gee, wow, hagiography.
Okay. Hagiography?
I'm sure I didn't say that right. Hagiography?
I'm not sure.
Hagiography?
I'm not sure what the word is.
I have no idea what the word means.
Okay.
Obviously, I can't even pronounce it. I'll look it up. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing the movie still, but like I said earlier, I was hoping that we would get something more than, isn't this guy cool?
Well, apparently it isn't, based on that Hollywood Reporter quote, right? Sounds like it doesn't really get
so that word, hagiography.
Okay.
Hagiography.
Yeah, I've never even seen that word, actually.
It's adultery writing about another person, idealizing a subject, the writing of the lives of saints. So he was using it sort of in a derogatory term, like you're idolizing this guy and he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, interesting. I watched, speaking of that exact subject, I watched a documentary on the band Oasis.
Oh, no.
Did you see it?
I didn't, but for some reason I'm not a fan, and I think it's because I've heard some quotes from the guy, like that they're better than the Beatles or something.
Yeah. I think so. I think it's called Oasis Supersonic. It's on Amazon Prime. If you want to watch it for free, you could stream it there. Geez Louise, those guys are egomaniacal. Like, it is crazy. I grew up listening to them, and like I liked some of their hits, but I didn't realize that they were such a cultural, they were so important, and especially in the UK, like they were the biggest band since the Beatles, and a lot of people still feel that way. Which I don't know. I think of U2 and like other Coldplay even like being bigger than Oasis, but apparently they were huge. And so this document,
I think Coldplay and Oasis are the same band.
No,
that's the way I feel about both of those bands.
Well, that's funny, but Coldplay is bubblegum compared to Oasis is like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like Oasis. I mean, what was compelling for me about the documentary...
Oasis has a couple of cool songs, I got to admit.
For sure. But what was compelling to me about the documentary is it's these two brothers that were in the band, right, who are always feuding. And I knew that about them, but this really gets into it. And there's tons of home video footage of them fighting and literally fist fighting. And one hits the other one in the head with a baseball bat and sends him to the hospital in one of the fights during a recording session.
Nice.
So, like, the entire documentary is really just a character study on these two brothers and their relationship, and one is a quiet retrospective songwriter and the other one is a brash frontman singer, and how those two personalities clash, know. And so the introspective songwriter always wishes that he looked as cool in clothing as that dude does and sunglasses, but the dude who looks cool always wishes that he had the talent that dude does. And so they're all
that's fascinating.
It is.
So there's a lot of insecurity from the frontman.
Both insecurity from both.
And the guy got hit with a baseball bat?
Yeah.
Over the head?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nitpicking. That's nitpicking, isn't it?
Well,
that's a few baseball bats across the head.
And they're exhibiting a lot of diva behavior. And by the way, tremendous amount of drug usage, snorting crystal meth on stage at the Whiskey A Go-Go, like in their first time playing LA, like off the amplifier. So, it was, again, interesting from a character study standpoint. The music, I'm still not sure why they were as huge as they were, but
I think they were a lot bigger in England than they were here.
Yeah.
And I know that I was put off by him because I heard the guy, I think on Howard Stern or somewhere, say something about, or I heard Paul McCartney talking about Oasis, the front man, saying that they're bigger than the Beatles. Mm-hmm. And I think that put off Paul McCartney a little bit. And I tend to side with Paul McCartney.
I do too. And then, I completely do. But after watching this, I realized that was part of their persona.
Right.
I'm
that's
not
who this
sure
guy
that
is.
Liam even feels that way. I think he's just going to play that role.
Yeah.
They realized early on that you could fake it till you make it, and they're going to do it, So.
Don't they have that song, After All, maybe it's going to be to maybe, something like that?
You just combine two of their songs, actually. Maybe you're going to be the one that saves me.
Yeah.
And After All, you're my Wonderwall.
Oh, Wonderwall, yeah. Okay, so two songs into one. That says a lot about
Champagne Supernova was one of their big hits.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had some good ones.
All right.
So.
Well, that's all I got.
I'm going to give you my Duke.
Oh, yeah.
This is my Duke of the week. I feel like I should have come up with a Duke of the year. Really, this is
That's
a
good
retrospective
point.
show.
Think quickly.
No, I'm going to give you my Duke of the week.
John's your Duke of the year.
I mean, that's too obvious.
That's a mail-in, huh?
It's too obvious.
Mailed it in.
Duke of the week.
Yeah.
Damien Hobgood.
All right, Damo.
Do you know why?
Because his name's Damo.
I think I'm picking Damo. This kind of is a 2016 reflection, actually. Damo, because he's been an unsung hero this year. He got booted off tour, and you think, I'll not hear from a lot of the people that get booted off tour. Damo quietly has put in some of the most impressive performances. Nazare, most recently. Do you remember the massive tube that he got at Cloudbreak?
Yeah.
It was the Big Wave World Tour as a nominee for the best wave of the year.
Yeah.
Dude, it is insane. I'm going to post a video of it on surfsplendorpodcast.com so you can watch it. It got overlooked somehow. Even during that swell, there were other waves that kind of got more attention. This wave is absolutely insane. He threads. I mean, the way that somebody threads like a head-high barrel, like dodging and weaving and adjusting and foam ball riding, but the thing is triple overhead, and he's riding like a 7'6" board. It's crazy. Then he got, at the beginning of the year, massive Ocean Beach session with Josh Kerr that was like perfect Ocean Beach, but perfect Ocean Beach is very difficult to surf and it's difficult to paddle, and he was getting shacked out there, dominating it, like manhandling giant.
Well, that's a good call. You and I have spoken about Damien Hobgood as his, all these pro surfers have to have like an act 2 or an act 3 in their careers, and Damo's next act is obviously making an impact on the Big Wave World Tour and the Big Wave World scene. And I would not surprise me if next year or the year after that, he's the Big Wave World Champion. Because he's got the competitive savvy.
Exactly.
He's got all the skill. And he's that guy that we talked about where it's time for guys with competitive savvy to knock out the underground charger guy who's just out there because it's all about the brotherhood. Well, those days are over. Mm-hmm. Now it's time. There's money involved. Let's get some real competitors in this Big Wave World Tour.
Yeah, he's ranked 17th right now on the Big Wave World Tour, but I don't think that's reflective. I don't think he did a lot of the events. It looks like he did 3 events, actually, out of the 5.
The Big Wave World Tour,
it's
not a calendar year tour, so it's hard to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, did it end? Did it just start? Are we in the middle of it? Who knows?
Right. Yeah, so I agree, though. Like, I think Damo's second act will actually eclipse his first act, because can you remember much of what he did on the World Tour? Not really.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, you're right.
And
he
what
won
you do remember?
I think he won it. He might have won in France once, or
No,
I think he won
didn't.
at Mundaka or something. Or
I think maybe like what you even remember about him, it might have actually been CJ. You know what I mean? Like,
he was a world champion in 2001. Who knew? For many years, they were the same guy.
which is now they've
I've
diverted.
surfed with both of them. They're both super cool.
Yeah.
Damien's a really nice guy, and he's a very giving guy in the water, and he's a lot of fun to surf with. Not that CJ isn't. Damien's a really cool guy.
Now their identities have diverged, though, because
They really have. CJ's kind of off the grid.
he's sales repping for freaking, I think, Salty Crew or something in Florida, or Smith or something. Yeah, he is, literally.
All right. Well,
So,
got to feed the kids.
yeah, exactly.
I don't blame him.
But Damo, on the other hand,
Still living the dream.
not only that, it is his second career second phase, Act 2, but I think he's putting in more memorable performances in Act 2 than he ever did in Act 1.
He's a great surfer.
I'm a huge fan.
I am
Damo,
too.
this is my opportunity to honor you and what you accomplished quietly in 2016. And then also, Fox completely eliminated their surf team, which he was a part of. So what does this look like for 2017? Less money, less salary anyways. How is he going to do it? I'm curious to watch. Damo,
Somebody would be wise to pick him up as a big wave. Maybe somebody like Hurley or something. Somebody with some money.
but why and who and
I know. I don't know if there's any ROI involved there. Like, there's
Yeah.
no return on investment. Is there return on investment if you sponsor a big wave world tour surfer?
we've had this conversation a lot. It's an ongoing conversation, and I am unconvinced.
Who's the champion big wave? Is it Twiggy? Does he might be marketable in South Africa? I have no idea.
I think Twiggy. It would be a
In South Africa, like by
Patagonia.
Ford or something.
Patago-
Yeah,
yeah.
like Toyota, Range Rover, something like that. Like the South African dealership group sponsors him, or so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like a South African cereal company.
Yeah, I think he was on Billabong a long time ago, and then got the transfer over to Vissla with Paul Nade thing, but he's not on Vissla anymore.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, Scott, it's been a wonderful 2016.
You have no kook, huh? It has been a wonderful. This is the year of the chop hop hairdo, David. I mean,
dude. Somebody commented on Instagram. Did you see it?
no.
Fiasco Surf commented on your Instagram and said, "You should have let David keep $20 to fix the chop hop."
Very well put, my friend.
Brutal. What do you think I should go? Should I brand new hairstyle 2017? What should I do, dude?
Dude, don't leave a good thing.
right,
Keep
all
it
right.
going,
All right, I'm going to ride this. This is my 15 minutes, and I'm soaking it. All right, so we're going to surf together January 1st.
Yes.
Let it be known.
We'll drink tea. We will surf. You will come to my house. You will meet my wife. You know my
I've
wife.
been to your house, dude. Come on.
That's right. All right. January 1st. We're going to surf.
Cannot wait.
Okay. Until next time. What a great 2016. Thanks to all of our listeners. We look forward to getting your donations on our website. You can donate and keep this podcast moving forward. Thanks so much from David, from Scott, to you and yours. I don't know what I'm saying, David. Aloha. Adios and aloha.